Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot.
Not a bad Monday if your name's Justin Gaethje, I wouldn't think. I always wonder what it's like to wake up on a Sunday morning after a win like that. Pay-per-view recap week on the Anik Florian podcast. It is Monday, July 31st, 2023. Pay your rent, folks. Pay your mortgage. My wife's like, why do you call it rent? We own our house. I'm like, no, we don't. We owe the bank like a lot of money for our house. Episode 426 of the Anik Florian podcast presented by DraftKings, live on the DraftKings network on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And clips, of course, on the Anik Florian podcast channel, where, of course, you can find Remember the Show with Bilal Muhammad and Jason Anik. Also, NFL content coming to the Anik Florian podcast channel this season, potentially as well. KenFlo, we have got a lot to get into. Look at you today, huh? Standing up straight. You had a workout this morning. You're sitting up straight. That's good posture this morning, KenFlo.
Thank you, man. I've been working on it. I'm usually twisted, hunched over, but yeah, got a workout in. I'm ready to tackle the day, kid.
Is that a back-centric workout focused on improving your back, or are you going full body? Like, what do you got going on?
Always, dude. This thing needs maintenance. It's like a car that's falling apart. I got to constantly tweaking the engine, making sure the brakes are good, the tires, and everything in between. Yeah.
All right. So one of our listeners asked us to do an hour on Justin Gaethje, and we could. I went through his whole wins list, and I don't even know where to begin. So I guess I'll begin with Justin Gaethje over Dustin Poirier by head kick. It comes at the 1 minute mark exactly of round 2. Not seemingly a weapon he throws a ton in training, nor in sparring, nor in fights, I guess, but a huge monumental win for Justin Gaethje. And I think he was asked by Joe Rogan after the fact if this was the most satisfying or biggest win of his UFC career. And gosh, you know, the Rafael Fiziev fight was a huge springboard, and we're going to get into all of that. But when you go through the wins list and the body of work, biggest win of Justin Gaethje's career came on one of the biggest stages, and we congratulate a great dude and a really great fighter.
Man, you're very good at packing in so much information in a short amount of time. There's so much to talk about, dude. I think the finish sums up so much of who Justin Gaethje is right now in July of 2023, because he has evolved so much. You also mentioned the Rafael Fiziev fight, and I think that was a huge turning point as well, and a big reason why I decided to go with Justin Gaethje in this fight. He always had that killer instinct. In fact, he had too much killer instinct. He had too much savage. He was so much of a marauder where he would charge forward and try to take your head off with punches. Now we're seeing a Justin Gaethje that knows how to compose himself. We know that Justin Gaethje is now working on other aspects of his game, and he's also has injected so much intelligence in how he goes about his fight game plans and what he's present to during a fight. He's watching, he's analyzing. He's not just charging forward trying to take your head off now. And I think that's why I decided to go with him. And man, he looked absolutely phenomenal against a Dustin Poirier who has a lot of ways in which he can defeat you. So I think, you know, it is so beautiful to see this type of evolution in a guy who had this kind of potential, and we're seeing it. You can change fighters as long as they are open-minded to it. You can do it. And, you know, similar as far as the knockout itself, John, it's similar to I guess a winning point in tennis, right? The last point, the last shot you make isn't necessarily the winning shot. It's the one that gets you out of position. Justin Gaethje was throwing that right hand a lot. He was landing it. Dustin Poirier started adjusting to it. He was raising that hand up, and he thought it was coming again. And Justin Gaethje, it seemed like he was just feeling the fight and just decided to just throw it in the moment. And boy, did it work. He got Dustin to cover high. And as he was dropping that hand, a leg came up and over it, landed, knocked him down, of course, almost out. And then the follow-up hammer shot, of course, from Justin Gaethje was the kill shot. But my goodness, just an unbelievable performance.
So sometimes Dustin Poirier can look tight to me, but then he can go out and produce some of his signature wins, right? Like I thought he looked tight going into one of the Conor McGregor fights, and it was masterful and the biggest win of his career. So Justin Gaethje talked to how calm he was, and he was undeniably calm. And I would imagine him highlighting that suggests that there are levels to the calmness. So I would spin that back to three-time UFC world title challenger Kenny Florian. I got to think, and I don't even necessarily want to go too far back to the Diego Sanchez type days, but were there fights in your career, later in your career maybe, where you felt a certain calmness over you that you didn't necessarily feel in other fights?
Definitely. I think there was a few of them. I think the first time I probably experienced that sense of peace and relaxation was the one against Kit Cope. I remember just kind of starting the fight and then my hand getting raised. I don't even remember anything that happened in between. I was just so calm, and I felt like I was seeing everything coming. Everything just seemed to happen in slow motion. Now every fight was like that, but I definitely had experiences of that, of feeling like I was in that zone. Now, Justin Gaethje was worrying me a little bit when he was ducking down, straight down to those kicks of Poirier. And I was a little concerned because, Mike Brown, being the astute coach that he is, had noticed it and said, hey, throw that knee next time. He's ducking down, throw. And I was like, oh man, they're on to what he's doing. They might catch him. But Justin saw it coming. He was leaning back, which threw Dustin off a little bit. And, again, obviously we know what happened, but, his ability to stay calm, I think, is a common trait amongst guys who are truly elite, especially champions. I mean, you can go, from Cain Velasquez to guys that, like, they don't get too high with the highs and they don't get too low with the lows. Yeah. And I think being able to manage that shows an emotional intelligence that is quite rare in professional sports, especially when we're talking about, hitting and getting hit. This isn't swinging a bat at a ball. This isn't kicking a ball. This isn't catching a ball. There's a lot on the line here, and to have that level of composure is just very, very rare. And boy, does Gaethje have it.
And I would suggest Dustin Poirier has it too. Certainly not a guy that screams from the rooftops when he wins. Even when Dustin knocked out Conor McGregor, he wasn't even puffing his chest as much as maybe you'd think he would, if memory serves. But I want to talk a little bit about Justin Gaethje and how his game has elevated with the strength of schedule, because I think sometimes we get lost in the fact that the first meeting with Poirier was his third UFC fight, and he had realized all this championship success in WSOF, 5 successive title defenses, and doing it with a style that made him the most entertaining fighter in mixed martial arts, right? Like I said on a UFC telecast, I think one time, he's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, and now he's that times 10, right? So, but as the schedule increased, I think he and Trevor Whitman came to this realization, obviously, that they were going to have to, just be a little bit more selective and engage more selectively and be controlled in the chaos. And of course, those terms all now sound trite because we've trotted them out there on the broadcast for 3 and 4 consecutive Justin Gaethje fights right now. But you were sort of expectant of this result. And again, I mean, who knows, right? This game flips on a dime. Not that you expected some head kick knockout, 6 minutes into the fight. No. But, I don't know that it was all that surprising given what we've seen in terms of Justin Gaethje's evolution, especially can't overstate the value of those 15 minutes against Rafael Fiziev.
No question about it. I think when you are fighting and you're doing new things and perhaps getting out of your comfort zone, and this is a big credit to Trevor Whitman, who clearly they have a trust between them, right? And a great rapport. So I think that when you're going out there and you're seeing the results, and you're trusting in that process, it tends to compound. And you go, okay, let me try it for this fight. Let me try it for the next one. Let me try it for and you're certainly going to have some hiccups during that process. But to see Justin Gaethje really kind of charge up that mountain little by little and adding these new wrinkles and adding these new approaches to his training and to his fights, it shows that this is a guy that is open-minded, who's been working very hard in the background and finding the right results because of it. And to do that against another, excellent, elite, truly elite fighter in Dustin Poirier is only going to make that much better. It's going to make Gaethje that much more dangerous, that much more confident, and that much more capable of winning the big fights when he needs to. So, kudos to Gaethje and his whole team.
And he may not be quite as calm if he's fighting, say, Islam Makhachev. Just given the matchup, it might be such a thought-provoking challenge during the fight in certain situations that maybe he won't have that calmness. But I'm telling you, and I don't intend for this to sound like the Rafael Fiziev Appreciation Hour and not the Gaethje Appreciation Hour, but when you hear Justin talk about Fiziev and that challenge, pre and post, how fast Fiziev is, right? Like some people would suggest to you in 2023 that Rafael Fiziev is better than Dustin Poirier, right? And I just think that win and maybe that preparation and everything that went into that just was a huge springboard. And this particular challenge, while physical and daunting over 25 potential minutes, just felt like, man, I get through Fiziev, guy a lot of people would turn down because of his striking game. I could beat Dustin, and he went out and did it.
Not many can strike like a Rafael Fiziev, and seeing that, and that's why I mentioned in that last podcast, Dustin Poirier is a very good fighter. He's a great fighter. He's a very, very good striker. But when you look at Fiziev and the kind of weapons that he has and his speed and, all those different weapons, it was such a great win for Justin Gaethje. And it was a beautiful mix of intelligence and aggression. He did things at the right time. He had the right game plan. He trusted in that process. And man, it's scary for everybody in that division because Gaethje is getting better. He's getting smarter, and he's going to be that much more difficult to take out or even win rounds against. So it was pretty cool. And, the evolution of him from 5 years ago when he did face Dustin Poirier back in the day, it was significant before this fight. We didn't need to see this one to know that Gaethje has improved a lot, but this one was really the cherry on top.
And regardless of how you saw the first round, it's neither here nor there. But I do agree with Trevor Whitman. Gaethje fought a good 5 minutes, even though there were maybe some dips in there on which he could have been caught by a Poirier knee. You can get into that if you'd like.
No, exactly. I'm so glad you reminded me of that. I mean, let's talk about the punch to the eye. He was fighting with one eye, essentially, right? It was not an eye poke. It was just one of those things where the knuckle or the fist, the glove, whatever, catches you in the eye, which does happen. And that could be a real problem during a round, especially when you have someone like a Dustin Poirier in front of you.
Yeah.
I thought Gaethje did a great job of staying composed with that. He actually was throwing a lot of feints, just at the right time when Dustin Poirier was backing him up against the cage. And I think that's where Dustin is most dangerous. That's where Dustin had finished Justin Gaethje in their fight from 5 years ago. So I think Gaethje did a good job of feinting him, keeping Dustin honest, keeping him ready, keeping him doubting himself a little bit to buy some time and get himself out of trouble. So those feints really came into play. And I'm not sure Gaethje would have been able to do that even 2-3 years ago, John. So, to see him bounce back from that as well, again, it makes the win that much more impressive. Getting hit in the eye, not being able to see out of your eye, that's a real thing, dude.
Well, and now for Gaethje, he's going to realize several more potentially huge paydays, and he's presenting his best version to date. It's really all coming together for a guy who, not that ever had one foot out the door necessarily, but a lot can hinge and swing on one result. And I think for Dustin Poirier, he'll be back. I think a Rafael Fiziev fight makes sense. I mean, all the guys for Poirier, I think at 55, he can be selective about because he's got one of the bigger names in the division. But there are a lot of dangerous fights at lightweight, the best division in the UFC, right? A lot of different options for Poirier. We can get into the Gaethje Islam and Charles stuff in a little bit, but Kenny, just in terms of this singular win real quick, you add the name Dustin Poirier and this highlight for Gaethje to Edson Barboza, Donald Cerrone, Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Rafael Fiziev. just a huge legacy win for Justin Gaethje.
It's very, very impressive, man. And my understanding is, Gaethje is going to make another great payday because of this fight as well. Absolutely deserves every single penny. The dude is must-see TV. All he does is deliver action-packed fights, time in and time out, every single time, whether win or lose. And that's a dude that if you're, the head of the organization, you want Justin Gaethje on your team, man. That guy is extremely rare in so many different ways. But I did want to talk about Dustin Poirier. I don't know if you're going to go there next.
Please.
I remember cutting weight when I think it was the Diego Nunes fight. When I was cutting weight, he was I believe it was the Diego Nunes fight, and Dustin Poirier was on that card. And he's as tall as me. He's as big as me. He was cutting to 145 pounds as well. We were cutting weight for a time there. I stayed in there for a lot longer than he did, but I remember him, cutting down to 145 pounds. And I think back then he wasn't as sure of himself. He had all this potential, but maybe didn't have that same level of confidence in him and in his skills. And to see the turnaround that he's made and where he's come from and how he's established himself as a man, as a husband, as a dad, as a professional fighter, as a businessman, is just remarkable. And, to hear him talk about, reflect on the fight and his career, is such a mature dude, man, just a professional through and through. To see his perspective is just amazing. He's like, I'm going to win like a man. I'm going to lose like a man. And he is that dude. He is that dude. These aren't just words that come out of his mouth. And to see him achieve that level of success and to grow as a fighter and as a man, it's awesome to see, man. Because I remember when he was just like kind of a maybe unconfident young man, and to see what he's accomplished at this stage of the game is awesome. And I hope we see him again. And for Dustin, I think he doesn't fight as often as he used to, and I think that hurts him a little bit, especially if you're facing a seasoned, sharp guy like a Justin Gaethje. I think that's a difficult thing to do, no matter how much experience you have. But hopefully we see Dustin back, man. I think he's making great money as well, deserves every penny of it, and another gift to mixed martial arts is Dustin Poirier.
Beautifully put. He is a wealthy man, and I'm not talking about just the hot sauce. Obviously, a lot of fight purses, and I think he's put himself in a position to be very selective, but it's a great point by you. I do think it is easier to be sharp and comfortable in that setting when you are active, and when the fights get as big as they are now for Dustin Poirier, you're not competing more than a couple times a year. But yeah, he handled everything masterfully, and he didn't even go out, right? Like, the guy is really tough. I mean, he seemed to understand acutely what had happened pretty quickly after it had happened. I know briefly he maybe went after Herb Dean, but he handled everything after the fact with all the class that we have come to expect from the future UFC Hall of Famer. And for sure he's going to stick around, and there are a lot of big fights, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in some sort of super fight at 70 at some point in time. But we shall see. I don't know that he wants to take on necessarily the Rafael Fiziev, Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot types. I know Mateusz Gamrot is a teammate, but I guess we shall see. As for Justin Gaethje, KenFlo, what a good dude, by the way, too. I mean, what a tremendous dude, an athlete, Justin Gaethje, the backflip, everything else, whole family in the goddamn octagon. I mean, these people could not be easier to root for, could not possibly be easier to root for Justin Gaethje. And it is funny because sometimes, they trot out our lines in these promos, have you ever seen anything like Justin Gaethje is a line that you've heard repeatedly that I think I said after he beat Edson Barboza. And it's honestly something you would turn to your friend and say, like, KenFlo, have you ever seen anything like Justin Gaethje? And of course, he's like one of the few guys on the roster that has a twin brother, Marcus Gaethje. So yes, I guess we have seen something like Justin Gaethje, but not in the octagon per se. So certainly he's a different proposition for Charles Oliveira. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, both, fresh meat for Islam Makhachev, which was a nice thing for the UFC going into this fight. So what are your thoughts on Justin Gaethje? And I'll just throw in there real quickly, maybe if you pay him $5 million to show, he fights Conor McGregor, but otherwise you got to think it's undisputed title and have Justin Gaethje be of a singular focus on that. Yes?
Yeah, I think so. And, my understanding, and maybe it's not accurate right now, is that Gaethje tends to only train or mostly train when he has a fight coming up. He'll take some time off. Some people don't do that. But for Gaethje, I would say stay on this path, stay training exclusively. I'd say instead of like taking time off, just work on your grappling. The striking, once you get that fight or whatever, you get closer to a fight, start integrating all of your MMA skills, but get back to wrestling, get back to doing your jiu-jitsu, your get-ups, your defense, all those things, because I think that Makhachev fight is probably in his future. And why wouldn't it be? Again, assuming Makhachev gets by Oliveira, right? Things could get complicated if Oliveira goes in there and gets the win. But assuming Makhachev gets by Oliveira again for the second time, I would imagine Gaethje would be next. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest fight the UFC would make, right? If I'm the UFC matchmaker, I'm putting that one together. And that's going to be absolutely massive. You got your highlight reels already with everything Gaethje's been doing. But so if for me, Gaethje, get back into the grappling room, the wrestling room, work on that, get ready for that big fight. And if he's able to do that, I'm sure he has been doing it already. Damn it, why am I blanking on who his jiu-jitsu coach is now, John?
George Santiago.
George Santiago. Thank you very much, from ATT. Yeah. It seems like that's really been helping. And I'm not sure he really had a jiu-jitsu coach or grappling coach who was really looking at what he's doing day in and day out. But to see that as a crucial part of his team now, last couple fights, I think that's going to be key for him as he gets closer to that potential Makhachev fight.
I know we've had this conversation before, but when you're preparing for someone like Islam Makhachev, and this is in no way to denigrate Makhachev's striking, because in a kickboxing match, who knows, he could be competitive against Justin Gaethje there. But I think coaches have differing philosophies sometimes in terms of the preparation, like literally spending 9 weeks starting in bad spots, trying to get out, versus systematically making it a boring fight and not being in those positions, right? Like,
right.
How do you handle the preparation? And is that even a fair question to me to ask you? Right. And I bring it up because a coach actually brought it to me back in the day. Two coaches under the same banner, different philosophies when it came to preparing for, I think, Khabib Nurmagomedov back in the day.
Totally. And John, I think it's a great question. I'm not sure I have a very precise answer for you, because I think it varies fight to fight. It varies camp to camp. Now, this is why I think it's very important for him to work on this shit now, because what happens is you get guys who will grapple a whole camp and now their striking is off, or they're so focused on what that other guy is doing that they're not able to bring out that beautiful striking that Gaethje possesses, or that aggression that Gaethje possesses. So I think doing that stuff now, getting more comfortable with those positions, I think allows you to have a better camp. It allows you to have a more complete camp. So again, I think fights are really won or lost in between fights, in between camps. And I think for Gaethje, I know this is so important for him, right? He's got this phenomenal record. He could retire right now and he'd be an absolute legend. But if you are the Justin Gaethje type of mentality and mindset, you want to be a world champion in the UFC. And I think that this is what he needs to do to get there.
It just feels like his legacy is to get the interim lightweight belt as he did, toss it on the ground as he did, go win the belt for being the baddest motherfucker in the UFC, and then putting a capstone on all of it by becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. It almost feels like destiny in a lot of respects. Yeah. So real quick, as we sort of put a bow on Justin Gaethje, financial success is there, and he built this foundation as the most entertaining man in MMA. And then this pivot that now is well documented and probably overstated in terms of him now, becoming this completely well-rounded fighter that maybe puts entertainment second to being the best fighter in the world, Kenny. But he hasn't still been involved in a boring round, right? Like he's still, it's just amazing, the footage. And so when you think about him fighting somebody like Islam Makhachev, right? And again, obviously, he's got to get through Charles Oliveira, which is no picnic as well. Like Charles Oliveira is going to be a totally different beast, I believe, humbly, for Islam than he was the first time around, right? But like, I don't know, like, don't you have, like, wouldn't it serve Justin well to like run some clock against Islam and like not be exciting at all? And like, maybe, I don't know, I just had written down, like, wouldn't it be good for Justin to maybe have the most boring round of his career in round one against Islam potentially?
In some ways, just stop his takedowns. Take away some of that confidence anyway from Islam Makhachev, right? And just thwart those takedown attempts and go, have it get into Islam's mind potentially that you may have to stand up with me for another 20 minutes, right? So I think that's crucial. It's going to be really interesting, man, to see how it all pans out. But for Gaethje, man, I think, John, you get a taste of it, of course, being on these big pay-per-view cards, feeling that just being in front of the camera and feeling that type of energy is something that very few people can ever experience. We are so lucky that we can call live mixed martial arts fights, right? But to compete in front of millions of people all over the world that are watching you, to feel that energy when you are in the cage facing another human being that is trying to destroy you, and it's either destroy or be destroyed, right? Just to get a win by decision is like huge, right? But to get a knockout, I have chills. I don't think I've stopped getting chills since you've been talking about Gaethje, but to get that kind of knockout in a main event setting in the UFC when it matters is unlike any feeling in sports. And we've talked about this so many times. Listen, football's a great sport. Soccer's awesome. World Cup final. It's all amazing. And perhaps we are biased here. But when MMA is at its best, dude, there's nothing like it. When you're talking about what is on the line, which is your body and brain. Right. There is nothing like it. And you just took out that other savage with a knockout, with finality, where the referee doesn't go in. He doesn't even need to go in there, right? And you just put that dude's lights out. That's as good as it gets. And to see Gaethje do that against an unbelievable fighter in Dustin Poirier, that's what it's all about, man.
With the entire world watching on arguably the biggest stage of the year, and then you hit the backflip as well. And if you are wondering what was KenFlo's moment most like that, we call on the president of Team Florian. That would be me. So here's how we're going to answer this question, essentially. So UFC 91, I believe it was, and we had MMA live at UFC 91. KenFlo was competing against Joe Daddy Stevenson in the co-main event underneath Randy Couture and Brock Lesnar. Do I have those details right to this point in time? Championship title eliminator at 155 pounds. And unfortunately for Team Florian, this performance would lay the foundation for BJ Penn to put in the greatest training camp of his life and prepare like a fucking savage. So much so that Team Florian was not able to realize a title however many months later. But this night, Kenny, right, against Joe Stevenson, one of the biggest cards in UFC history, maybe, I don't know, I mean, maybe the biggest card in UFC history up until that point in time, UFC 91, and you choke another man out and he's bloodied and battered on a huge stage, right? Would you say that was probably the closest thing you had to what Justin Gaethje experienced Saturday night?
It's definitely one of them. Definitely one of them. The Takanori Gomi fight was pretty special. All that
main
stuff.
Event.
Like, having that feeling, man, is unbelievable because you work so hard towards it. Then everybody's there in the arena. Everyone's cheering for you or against you, whatever it is. And there's very few people that can experience that in professional mixed martial arts, man. And I can't even imagine what that Gaethje win was like, dude. Just, for a guy who's been there, seeing that, it gets the blood going, dude.
Congratulations to Justin Gaethje, and in retirement, I would pay him to. I would pay to watch, I should say, him play golf and just stick around once a week on Netflix or something. So I'm sure he'll find some good things to do. But man, the future in mixed martial arts still remains very bright for the 34-year-old Justin Gaethje. All right, Alex Pereira is 36. He always looks to tell people, "Hey, man, I got to get these title fights, right? I'm not going to be here forever because I'm getting a late start." And man, as he made the most of it, he gets past Jan Blachowicz narrowly by split decision. I have no idea how you feel about this fight nor this decision. So the floor is yours. What did you think of the co-main event and Alex Pereira's jaunt up to 205 pounds?
Yes, sir. It's impressive what Pereira has done in the UFC in such a short amount of time. It's not a lot of people can do that, especially from a striking background, in my opinion. I think it's more difficult in a lot of ways. But for Pereira, I mean, how do you go from 185 to go at 205 against Jan Blachowicz and look like significantly bigger than him? And lean, still lean. Pereira is a freak. He's got a stare that would likely cause a lot of people to pull a weapon out. And he's just incredible force. It was not his best performance, but it was still impressive nonetheless, in that he really had to battle back both technically, physically, spiritually after that first round, where he was really neutered by Blachowicz. He had him by the back. He wasn't able to finish. He survived that. I think that's why he was a little bit, maybe lost a little bit of that power in his punches a little bit in rounds 2 and 3. But I think he did make some great adjustments. First of all, those leg kicks, absolutely brutal. He doesn't need many to compromise that lead leg. And boy, did he do that to Blachowicz. I also thought it was very smart of him to go for that jab. He was like jabbing to the sternum, which was really smart because it really took away Blachowicz's ability to change levels and want to even hit takedowns on him. So it bought him some time as well. And I thought he, not in the most impressive way, but he did enough to win those rounds, in my opinion. I know Blachowicz is very upset about that decision, but Blachowicz just didn't do enough. Pereira wasn't necessarily throwing knockout shots either, but I thought his striking was more effective than Blachowicz's, which is why I thought he should have got the win. And you very intelligently during the fight pointed out, hey, listen, Blachowicz took him down, but he didn't do anything. And really that, at the end of the day, is the difference. If he decided to posture up, land some great ground and pound, I think that would have certainly helped his cause. It was a close fight, but I thought it was clear for Pereira. And these are the types of wins also that you need to get in your career. Sometimes combat isn't pretty, man, and you got to do whatever it takes to get the win and battle back. And I thought that's what Pereira did. So a good notch on the belt for him.
I agree with all of that, and a lot to get into on this fight. Real quick, you use the verb neutered, right? So, which accurately refers to a male. So would you have used the verb spayed if you were talking about female fighters there?
That's beautiful. I don't think so. I haven't thought of that in those terms, but I don't know. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to do some thinking.
It's interesting because I just had to Google. Why is Cody calling me a bigot? What? This isn't sexist at all.
You're killing me, dude. I'm crying right now.
I just had to look up on my phone neutered versus spayed to see which one applied to which gender. And so I was like, oh, well, at least he was accurate, right? But as somebody who used to work as a print journalist, I've used the verb neutered before, but I never used it thinking of it in conjunction with a man. I've certainly never used the verb spayed before, nor the fuck would you. So I'm just letting you know, don't use the verb neutered when you're talking about female fighting. That's all. This is not bigotry. This is not sexism.
Man.
It's none
You're
of that.
a trap, dude.
All right. So in terms of the optics of this fight and the scoring of round 3, I do think there's some important things we can get into. The body triangle. Jan Blachowicz has a good rear naked choke. A lot of talk on the Anik Florian podcast, as you listeners know, about people who don't have good offensive jiu-jitsu and good rear naked chokes. But Jan Blachowicz is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. Good body triangle, knows how to take your back, good rear naked choke. But he was absolutely exhausted, Kenny, after the first 5 minutes. And this is a guy who trains very hard, but also a guy who did acknowledge that he's 40 and not 35 in our fighter meeting when I asked him about his speed and certain things, right? Like, if you're clean, as Jan Blachowicz is, right? I think he got one of those fancy jackets from USADA, right? Like, 40 is a real number. And I don't know what was the factor here, Kenny, but I thought the optics hurt Jan Blachowicz because even in a round 3 that was a striking round in which he got some things done, I thought the optics really hurt him because he was just visibly exhausted even after he was the guy who was landing.
Accurate. And again, it could be a lot of things. Of course, they fought at high altitude. That's always going to play a factor and certainly can with anybody, no matter how good a shape you are in. But I also think, the fact that he was in there with a flat tire, that lead leg was taking an absolute beating. And also it is very, and it depends on your mentality, right? You can go out there, take a dude out, take the back and go, awesome, I'm going to do this again. I didn't get the submission, but I can dominate this guy on the ground. I know I can do that now. This is going to give me confidence. Or you could see it damn it, I had my opportunity. I couldn't submit him there. Crap, I got to go through that again. So the type of tricks that your mind plays and how you have a conversation with yourself during a fight is a real thing too. So I think that for Jon, I think there was certainly a lot of frustration there because he did everything he was supposed to do. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that as far as a start against someone like Alex Pereira, right? So I think that may have played a part as well. What kind of talk was he having with himself there? I think if he goes back and watches that fight a few more times, he's going to look at that and go, yeah, it looked like I was kind of winging punches. I looked like I was tired. And those things absolutely matter. I have an amateur fighter, who I talked to about that as well. He just won, by the way. Shout out to Ben Cash and how important that is. It's like that. Jalen Turner against Dan Hooker, I thought that was a factor as well. Dan Hooker was eating a lot of shots, but he was acting like they weren't big shots. Jalen Turner when he was getting hit, was acting like they were in fact big shots. And it's little things like that can swing a round to your favor or not. And I think that certainly hurt Jan Blachowicz, but also that was a real thing. He was absolutely tired in that fight.
And for the record, I do believe Alex Pereira won round 3 and thereby the fight, even though Jan Blachowicz did get some things done. By the way, let's go, Ben Cash. Hey, Ben Cash, you want the fucking Anik Florian podcast logo on your shorts? We'll fucking put that thing on your shorts. How much that cost, Ben Cash? Let's go, Ben Cash. We'll fucking put that logo on your shorts. Just let us know how much that costs. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt Anthony Smith, I asked him a little bit about this on the post-fight show. I mean, how tiring is it to hold that body triangle? Like, how tiring is it to be in one versus to hold one?
So it depends, right, on how efficient you are. But, trying to control a behemoth like an Alex Pereira, it can be very difficult, especially sometimes if you're just squeezing so much, that blood isn't necessarily flowing. You are triangling your legs, of course, right? So you're kind of impeding the ability for that blood to flow properly. So you're getting that buildup of blood. And now we're talking about it at high altitude. Now, I certainly can't break it down like some kind of scientist can, but in my mind, that's how I see it. And that's where it can happen, I think, in that legs. So he's already taking a beating to that leg. And then he's kind of squeezing with those legs, trying to control this, behemoth and Pereira, who keeps moving around. And it can be stressful. You certainly don't want to lose that position. So you got the mental fatigue, the physical fatigue, the high altitude. There's so much at play there. And I think all of that certainly played a factor in Blachowicz and the kind of fatigue that he showed in that fight.
All right, Ray Longo coming up in about 30 seconds, but very quickly in terms of the scoring in that third and final round, if I am interpreting things correctly, that is an effective striking round, which is to say that late takedown from Jan Blachowicz, he didn't do anything with it, and thereby that really doesn't factor into the round unless you thought strike for strike it was so close that you have to go to effective grappling there, and then it's the takedown for Jan Blachowicz. I felt like Alex Pereira had won the round at that point in time. That's why some ground and pound Jan Blachowicz needs to recognize in that point in time, right? It's like me at the end of my strength and conditioning workout, right? Like Jan Blachowicz, if he lands one major elbow there and cuts Alex open, he probably wins the fight. Let's get to the Ray Longo minute.
Now time for the Ray Longo Minute.
I want you to punch a hole in his fucking chest. That's what I want.
The Ray Longo Minute. Starring Ray Longo. The Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Ray Longo, the Godfather, is with us on a Monday.
Wow. Well, hold on. I'm just taking notes. Impeding blood flow to the. No, I'm serious because I never heard it explained like that. But wait, Kenny,
does that make sense? Did that make sense to you?
100%. Yeah. But you might not be a doctor, Kenny, but your father is.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's close enough for me.
That's close enough. I'm close enough to the source.
Let me tell you, there's some people out there that I'm not even joking would say, well, my father's a doctor, so that makes me a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I lied. I'm not a doctor, but my father is. And don't think
I play one on TV. Yeah.
Impeding blood flow. I love it.
Well, and Kenny not once in the 426 episode history of this show has said, I come from a medical family. My dad's a doctor. It's always me saying, KenFlo comes from a medical family. Dr. Gus Florian listens to the podcast. Kenny, what do you have for us? But yes, he's very much inclined. He's like a Renaissance man.
He's a doctor. As far as I'm concerned, the guy's a doctor. I don't really care what anybody says. He's a doctor.
Sure, Kenny eventually will probably have a doctorate in something.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. Augustine Florian will agree with us too. You did something right, Doc. The kid's a genius.
Yeah, that's
my God. But how we doing, guys?
Good. Kenny is a doctor at maintaining space between an individual potential from Argus Integrated Defense. All right. Well, we got a lot to get into. Go ahead.
John, let me interrupt you because I can't even control myself at this point. Can we introduce the Shameless Awards for this card? Who is the girl that fake tapped a little bit and had to tap? That makes it so hard on the referee, right? If he would have stopped it, that girl would have said I wasn't tapping. Just and the other guy that got the toes in his liver, that was clear. If you even look at the way, he didn't hold his nutsack when he went down. He just was out of breath. Shameless. I don't know. Those are the two awards.
Very much appreciate you pointing out those two instances. It was Darius Flowers absorbing the body shot by Jake Matthews. And I think I said on the broadcast, only he knows, whether or not, but yeah, I mean, and then Priscilla Cachoeira, right? Like she taps, right? Make it, I said on the broadcast, I'm trying to cap a fight here, make the commentator not look great either, right? I'm like, oh, she tapped. Oh, no, she didn't. Sorry.
I remember years ago, Kenny, when I bet you Matt was maybe a purple belt, maybe a brown belt, but big guy in the gym, but like 500-pound bench press, and Matt would tap him, but dude, he would use his pinky. He didn't even want nobody to know he was tapping, almost make it look like they would just keep rolling. I'm not joking. Like, you see everything. And that's what I saw. That girl tried to fake tap, and it puts the ref in a shitty position.
Yeah, you're right.
It really does.
Here's the thing. Cachoeira has done some shady stuff in the past, too. Like, I don't know.
I agree with you. Miranda's interview was perfect, though. I thought she handled herself like a gem. And let's give the sliding into home base award to Herb Dean. Outstanding job on this guy. Safe.
Yeah. Ray Longo minute every week here on the Anik Florian podcast. Ray, you seem like a Justin Gaethje guy.
Yeah, I am a Justin Gaethje, but
how could you not be? Is anybody out there, by the way, if you at Anik Florian Pod? And maybe this is just, does anybody not appreciate this guy? Is there anybody out there that has a bad word to say about Justin?
Can't hate either of those guys.
Plus he's a nice guy. He's always pretty nice whenever you see him. Not that I know him well, but the guy's a savage. Now he's a thinking savage, which even makes his savagery worse than when he was just a caveman savage. But now it looks like he's come into his own. That was a great fight. Both guys are just really, really good fighters. I thought Dustin, because of the longer rounds, like if it was a 3-round fight, I was going to pick Gaethje, but the 5 rounds, I figured Gaethje's always just consistently going and going and going. The other guy may be a little spurty, but damn, hats off to Justin Gaethje. Just like, again, now he's a thinking savage, and that makes him really fucking dangerous. And I honestly, John, I didn't want to pick against him because of the Fiziev fight. I thought he handled that fight beautifully because Fiziev is no joke with the striking. And, he's growing. He's getting better. Even at, I love the guys that take a couple of losses and they're able to just shelve it and come back. That really is the sign of a fighter. It really is. He's not going to get down on himself. He understands competition. He loves competing. This guy loves what he's doing. It can't come across anymore. And I don't know. In hindsight, that was a pretty big mistake, but hats off to him. He did great. And then and the other guy looks like he's just having a great time and he's loving his family and life. And good for him too, man. So all good all the way around, win or lose.
I really want to make sure we give this entire pay-per-view the respect that it deserves. But can I ask you briefly, Alex Pereira moving up to 205 pounds, your thought on how he fared in the co-main event against Jan Blachowicz?
Well, he fared well. I'm not saying it was the most exciting fight, but we saw him survive on the ground against a guy who's who's pretty good down there. Yeah, I thought it was for a first fight moving up. It actually is a perfect fight for him. Now, did the altitude have anything to do with the other guy? The optics were just awful. They were just awful.
Terrible.
I mean, I don't care if it's in the judging or not. If you're a human being and you're looking at a guy sucking air, and dude, it's got to be very, very invigorating for Alex to see. But as a judge, dude, it's just bad optics. And like, again, I'm not a judge, so that's why I could say I'm a human being. It looked like shit to me. It just, and the guy, he had a great first round. I would think 80% of the people thought that fight was going to be over in the first round. So hats off to Alex for that. I think he survived, looked way better than when he was wrestling with Adesanya that time. So
yeah.
I don't know. So I think...
Kenny, doesn't Pereira deserve credit for the defensive grappling? We've heard Glover Teixeira talk exhaustedly at this point in time about the physical strength and how capable he is in these grappling situations, right? We should probably give him some modicum of a credit there.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, he was tucking his chin well. He was defending the arms. He was fighting the wrists. He was staying composed. You know, that was a really bad spot for him, and he was in it for a really tough time and in a tough spot on the cage. He was kind of pinned up, sandwiched, you know, between the floor and the cage. So it just made things that much more difficult, and it's so easy to beat yourself up for being in that spot or getting overly excited, be like, I got to get out of here, and you extend your chin and you get choked out and it's all over.
Yes.
So he did a good job of using his experience, using his composure, doing what he was supposed to do, defend, survive, and come back in rounds 2 and 3. And that was the difference. We wouldn't be talking about this at all if it wasn't for his ability to survive in round 1.
Right. And let me say something. For a kickboxer, Kenny he hits on a great point. Composure. For a kickboxer to be in that position and not panic and, like you say, lift your head up or try to do something stupid, desperate, and put yourself in worse position was absolutely phenomenal. And look, Kenny, imagine he has bad position training with Glover Teixeira.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Just put this guy in bad positions every day. He fucking walks in the gym, and he'll survive those situations. So, yeah. So I'm going to say A+ for him. I think it could have been a little better, but given everything that we're talking about, what a great fight to move up to 205 with.
All right, I want to get your thoughts on Bobby Green over Tony Ferguson, one of the latter finishes in 3-round UFC history. Technical submission, arm triangle, 454 of round 3. And a lot of the discourse, of course, is surrounding Tony, 6 successive losses, some not great reactions nor visuals for him. Yeah. I tried when I got a microphone on the post show to sort of make it about Bobby Green because he's still fast as hell, 36 years old and still very competitive, and he turned pro in 2008. So I'd love your thoughts on that matchup and both sides of it, if you would, Raymond.
I'm gonna try to be constructively critical here. First off, like one thing, hats off to Dean Thomas, because I think Joe Rogan was alluding to, you know, like Ferguson has great angles. And Dean came in and said, no, he don't have great. He's just out of place all the time. That's his style. You think Ferguson, when he's sideways, is doing that on purpose? I find that hard to believe. So what do we want to see out of this guy? Go 12 straight wins and now 12 straight losses? Is that what we're looking for? So he could set a new record in the UFC? As much as he was moving forward and he did show signs of something, I think it's time for the guy to go. I think the time, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Fergie, he got choked out by Bobby Green, and hats off to Bobby Green. But you would think that shouldn't have happened. I mean, what were the odds on Bobby Green tapping Ferguson? What were the odds if you picked that?
No, it was something like plus 900.
Yeah, Kenny, you're in the gym, John, and somebody says, I got Bobby Green by submission. You'd probably tell the guy, dude, go hit the fucking heavy bag. Get the fuck away from me. What are you talking about? And I mean, Kenny, is it me? I don't even know, but I like Tony Ferguson. He's done great for the sport. He was good, but that was tough for me. That was tough to watch. So I don't want to take away nothing from Bobby Green, because Bobby Green's awesome. He's going to do what he's going to do. It looks like he's with some new guys. He's adding some stuff to his game. He
got knocked down in round one. Tony knocked him down with a jab, I believe, in round one. Did he not?
He did.
Was he on 1 foot though? Was it one of those? Flashed. I don't know. I'm asking you. I'm not being funny. He didn't get
Ray's
knocked
killing
down.
me. He's killing me.
Did he get knocked down, or he fell down? What was it?
Kenny, Tony Ferguson got so much love in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
It almost felt like a swan song, even though if he had won the fight, that wouldn't be the case. He has made a post on social media. He believes this eye poke was a really big factor in the fight and seemingly wants to get back on the horse. So I'll let you guys get into all of these things. Kenny, I guess I'm just curious from your standpoint, right? Like, I don't love the way he's reacting to strikes. But I also wouldn't completely shut the door on strategically trying to control the exit with Tony if you're the UFC, meaning find him. And again, of all the 80 lightweights in the UFC, there might not be a guy that doesn't present some sort of striking danger, okay? I'm just saying maybe give him one fight on which to go out that is built as his retirement fight that seemingly lacks the danger that some other matchups do. I'm not opposed to that, but I can understand why a lot of people in seats like you guys as analysts are calling for him to retire.
Well, I think Ray said it best with the Robbie Lawler fight, is that, it's rare that you see that kind of swan song. It rarely goes well when a guy has been fighting for that long. And I think that's why we were all so excited and so happy for someone like Robbie Lawler, right? And my concern for someone like Tony Ferguson is these are two camps, two big fights, right? And when I'm seeing a decline in that, that's where I get concerned. And this isn't, we could talk about Tony. He was never a technical fighter. I would never call him technical. I think what made Ferguson good was the fact that he was awkward, he was tough, and he was durable. And when he lost his durability, he was only left with being awkward and tough. That's the problem. Yes. And at this stage of the game, it reminds me of, something like BJ Penn, where, these guys are so good and in their peak, they were so damn good. But now BJ Penn, what was his record's like close to like a 500 record right now. And that is no indication of who BJ Penn was as a fighter. And that's what concerns me. Because Tony is tough and because he's a competitor, I can see him coming back and just getting hurt and going, I just need that one fight. I could do it the next time, and I can do it the next time. And to me, what I saw it was more than uncoordinated awkwardness. To me, I would even go as far as there was some kind of neurological degradation there. Where he's stepping, where it's almost like his body and brain aren't in sync. And that's a concern, because Tony Ferguson had been in so many wars prior to that Chandler fight. And when Chandler hit that kick, that's enough to make any man, I don't care who you are, less than after that. Yeah. So that's my big concern for Tony. And, people will be like, oh, you don't care about the fighters. No. With someone like Tony and his kind of legacy, I think he deserves some kind of clean exit. And I hope that he has done something financially to be in a comfortable position, because if I'm on his team, if we're being honest, or a manager or something, you have to have a sit down, serious talk with Tony Ferguson at this stage of the game, because it could go very badly, very quickly. And for me, it's not, you have a bad performance. That's okay. Everyone can have a bad performance or not look great, or injuries, whatever, the eye thing. Sure. But to me, it's the overall movement and reaction time. That's what makes it so different. Tony just looked like a completely different dude. He's 39 years old. He had one of the best runs in UFC history. I think, Ray is accurate in that. Now it's time. It really is.
Yeah. And Kenny, what Kenny said off the top, right? Back-to-back really good training camps, and this is the result. And I think that's why it's like, all right, we've really sort of exhausted this fruit the last 2 times, and we still didn't get that green stripe on the Wikipedia page. You got anything else on that?
Yeah, first of all, this is why I love Kenny Florian. I mean, I'm starting these weeks are hard for me because there's such a disparity between.
Well, he's getting better,
and my fucking analysis. He really is.
Oh,
better.
stop,
Kenny. No,
he's getting better. I don't think you're getting worse necessarily.
100%. Well. Listen, with age,
Minutemen are going to love
decline. That. but look, Kenny's just spot on with everything. With that though, I do go back and I forgot about that. Look, this was a fight. Like again, he has a great camp. Maybe it was a winnable fight. The eye poke sucks, man. That's not right at this stage of the game, man. I don't know that because I don't care. I don't give a shit who you are. It's going to affect you, and he's not in a position that he deserves that type of adversity because he's so fucking tough. This is a definition of a guy that's too tough for his own good. There's, it's a cliche, but that's what it is. Even with the eye poke, he's still going and he survives. And I don't know. So right.
Yeah. You could have taken his no contest. Could have taken his gray stripe on the Wikipedia, right?
Right. It's the tough guys. It's the tough guys that always take the most amount of damage. That's the problem.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's the problem. I forgot about the eye poke, too, which isn't really fair to Tony Ferguson. And even with anything we're analyzing, because I'm a real believer in that, or any eye poke is going to be a huge problem for anybody. I don't give a shit. It's just that eye poke sucks. And his eye was bleeding, I think.
Yeah, but also, why did Tony say that he was okay to fight? He had another few minutes to at least allow. Not saying maybe it would have been the same as far as his vision, but it was almost again that toughness took over. He's like, oh no, I want to fight right now.
No,
and Mergliano was telling him, no, you got more time.
Yeah.
Was it hurting? Was it affecting him, or wasn't it? And if it was, why did he decide to fight? Why is he making that decision?
Nah, he's a legitimate tough guy. That's the problem. And I'm sure in his head, he thought it would be dishonorable to even get out of there. So I feel big because you got to love the mentality. You love guys like that, but that's bad. Look, the whole eye poke thing to me is crazy. I mean, because you got to remember, Vellante lost that fight that time because he got poked in the eye in Jersey, and they asked him, can you see? He said no, and they stopped the fight. Like, if I poke you in the eye, of course you can't see. That's the whole purpose, Kenny, with your self-defense system is so the guy can't see. That's what you're trying to do. So what do we do, John? What do we do as an athletic commission to really help the guy out? You know what the rule is? Don't ask him if he could see. Because if he says no, you have to stop the fucking fight.
Right.
Come on, man. So let's not ask him.
No, I know. Ray's still bitter. I don't blame you. Ray's still more bitter than Vellante is this many years later.
Oh, no, Vellante, I just saw him. He's not bitter at all.
I know, right. He's coaching football.
Wait till you see him on the ESPN documentary, came in guns blazing. He's awesome, Vellante. But no, I'm just saying, but like, again, it's a problem. So, look, you break your leg. If I ask if your leg's broken, don't just say no. Just give me some time. Like, I don't understand it. I really don't. I think it's a way to keep the fight going. It's a way to, cover your ass with liability because you can't ask a guy, can you know what I'm saying? But it's not for the fucking right reason, which is to protect the fucking fighter. Like, I hate when they say, we're here to level the playing field. We're here to do that. And then this is what you do. Of course you can't see.
It's also hard for the fighters, right? Because Bilal Muhammad absorbed one of the worst eye pokes
100%
against Leon Edwards, and yet in the court of public opinion, people think he's soft, right? Like I didn't get poked in the eye. In my right eye, I haven't been able to wear contact lenses on the Anik Florian podcast in 2 weeks. I'm going to see a second ophthalmologist today. I was able to get through the UFC broadcast, but that created just a brutal situation with my eye on Sunday. I didn't even get poked, right? So, yes, we need to give these fighters the benefit of the doubt. And, it is a tough thing, though, right? Because, as soon as you say I can't see, it's a no contest. And in John Bellante's case, it was actually a loss. I would like to get into Kevin Holland and Michael Chiesa if I could, KenFlo. It's Bravo choke for Kevin Holland, comes to 239 of round one. I asked Anthony Smith, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, on the UFC telecast, and I think it speaks to maybe some of my ignorance, but why is somebody, and maybe And Michael Chiesa is not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he is somebody who is ubiquitous, regarded as a good MMA grappler. He's got a lot of submission wins. Yeah. He's got a lot of submission losses as well. And I wonder why a guy who is so revered as a grappler would be so susceptible to a submission or submissions plural. And Anthony explained it sort of the way he has his arms extended when he's going for a takedown. But I don't know, man. Obviously, this is a hugely disappointing return for a really good dude, Michael Chiesa.
Yeah, listen, I think that defense is probably one of the most ignored aspects of fighting, period. And we forget that we can't win a fight if we can't survive. And I think something like that, like we see a lot of it. I wish I spent more time defensively. It's like,
yes.
BJ Penn choked me out with a rear naked choke. And after the fight, my brother looks at me and he goes, "When's the last time you've been in that position?"
Without a doubt.
Like, he's like, yeah, that's going to change. And you know, you get used to doing things, you get comfortable, you forget that can happen. You train with the same people. Anyways, so sometimes you can be great offensively and not defensively. And it sucks doing that stuff, being in defensive positions and being in that over and over again, but it is an absolute must. It changed my whole mentality after that, because I didn't think I would lose position like that. Well, you absolutely can, especially if you're facing someone like a BJ Penn in his prime or whatever. But so, analyzing where you're vulnerable, being in those bad spots and getting used to that is not something that a lot of fighters like to do. And you got to do it. And I think for Chiesa, that has been kind of a vulnerability. But more than anything else, I think Kevin Holland was just sharp as a tack on Saturday night. He was doing everything right. And I think probably the most underappreciated thing about Kevin Holland is his intelligence. He is clearly a very, very smart fighter. He did his homework through and through. Like even the things he was saying, about Neil Magny and the fight, like this kid, he was on point with everything. And so, he talks a lot. And we see this guy who's cocky and he's talking a lot, but that masks his intelligence as a fighter. And he happens to be getting better. So everything from his level change to take away Chiesa's level changes, to his punches, to his counter offense on the grappling, the dude was on point, man. And he made a dude like Chiesa, who's got a lot of experience, who can give a lot of guys a tough time. He made Chiesa look average, like maybe less than average. That's how good Kevin Holland looked.
Yeah. Couple really good stuff. Look, any of my jiu-jitsu stuff is coming from Serra, but Matt Serra was huge on bad position training. Always was. Always. We would end every session with a cage on his head, somebody trying to pummel him from the guard, because he was back then, he fought a lot off his back, but he was always big on bad position training. And I told you this a couple of weeks ago with Nas. I watched every aspect of his fight except his jiu-jitsu training. So I remember a week before the fight, I go, dude, you got your bad position training, right? He goes, dude, I had savages on my back forever. And then when McKinney got his back, that guy wasn't even close to getting a choke. That's what made me feel comfortable as a coach when I was sitting there. If I don't have that conversation with him, and I don't know that as a coach, I would have been bad. But he did say, dude, I had everybody on my back and blah, blah, blah. And that's what it's got to be. Look, with Michael Chiesa, he is a great grappler. I think there's a couple of things. He's been around for a while. Kevin Holland's still kind of on the up and up. I think that's the difference. I saw Chiesa. Look, one of my favorite people in the world is Michael Chiesa. He's just a great guy. Saw him when I was in Vegas. He's got a beautiful wife. He's doing the analyzing. He's doing the gigs on. I think that all weighs into, maybe I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I know how to get out of these positions, like Kenny said, and you don't work them. But now the other guy is working them. He's working on putting you out, and you're not working on defending. And it could be something like that, but you'd have to really talk to him. But a nicer guy than Chiesa, no. I like that guy since the second he fought Iaquinta in the finals. He was always a stand-up, good fucking dude. I mean, a couple of years he stopped by the gym. He came out to visit Al. He just I'm not an Instagram guy, but I should have put the pictures up. He just made my day. He walked in out of nowhere. I didn't even know he was in town. He's just always a good guy, just a good guy.
And he prepared like hell.
Yeah.
He prepared like hell for Kevin Holland. Sometimes it can be about maybe directing that preparation when it comes to some of the defensive stuff. But he could have. Yeah, John, he could have prepared standing up more than he prepared on the ground, because he thought that
his weakness, if anything, would be to stand up on the ground. He figured maybe I can get away with it. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I'm a black belt. We put so much emphasis on black belt. There's different types of black belts too.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. Whatever.
Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
Well, some people, though, have, wondered about Kevin Holland in the past. He's a Travis Lutter Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And if memory serves, he didn't enter the UFC with a black belt. He has continued to ascend, and now he's a black belt. But he has a full-time wrestling coach, Eric Sands, who has worked with other MMA fighters. And to Kenny's point, he sort of alluded to the Neil Magny thing, right? Just talking about how if Neil Magny, and these are Kevin Holland's words, not mine, was a better fighter, he would have taken advantage of these mistakes, right? Kevin Holland eats fucking film, high fight IQ, made his UFC debut on short notice against Thiago Maheta fucking Santos, one of the most decorated knockout artists in UFC history, right? Go look at the track record on Kevin Holland, the win over Jacare de Souza, capping a 5-win 2020. One of the most underrated fighters on the roster, right? Yeah, I mean, he got out wrestled by Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. Neither guy could finish him over 25 minutes. Look at the guy's resume, all the main events. I buried the lead probably talking about Chiesa, but two really good
Good, really good point.
For Kev.
Good point, John. Really, we're not taking nothing away from Kevin Holland. Obviously, this guy loves to fight. He's entertaining, and he's only going to get better. You know what I mean? I think because Chiesa's been around a while, he deserves to be talked about. But no, at all. This has nothing to do with Kevin Holland.
No, of course.
Because he's always game to fight, and he's. He loves it. You could see it comes through in his personality. He's going to get better and better, Kevin Holland.
All right. We got a few more minutes here with Ray Longo. So when we're doing the UFC post-fight show, we go in a lot of different directions. It's not as though we have that much time, but we spend a lot of time on DERRICK Lewis, and certainly in some part because he drops his shorts, right? But that means that a guy like Gabriel Bonfim doesn't get talked about on the post show. And sometimes that's what we deal with here. And sometimes fans will be like, dude, you don't have a clock. And it's like, yeah, but Kenny Florian's in demand. There's a line outside his door right now for autographs, and he lives in a fucking gated community. You know what I mean? So it's like, we can't be here forever in terms of talking about all of these guys. But also I want to talk to you about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because he did not compete, and there are a lot of layers to that as well. So let us start with Stephen Thompson. He was to face Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira might be the biggest welterweight on the roster. He was trying to extend his winning streak to 6 in the highest profile fight of his career. Fails the fight before the fight, weighs in 174 pounds. And your guy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who has been burned by that type of circumstance in the past, refuses the fight. Ray Longo, your thoughts?
100% he made the right decision. And there's got to be penalties. What the fuck is a couple extra $1,000 going to do at that point? You know what I mean? If you lose the fight, nobody cares. They're going to see an L on your record. The guy's 40 years old. Give the guy a fucking break. Pay him his fucking money because he showed up. He signed on the dotted line. The other guy couldn't complete in any legal system anywhere. That guy gets penalized. I mean, even they should pay him his show money and make Pereira pay whatever he would have had to pay him if the fight went on. I mean, the guy's huge. Wonderboy's got, I don't know. I think he did the right thing, and I think it should be talked about more because, like he said, 11 years in the UFC, he's never missed weight. And to these guys that make weight, this is very, very insulting. It's not easy to do. 3 pounds at the end could be a fucking nightmare. It's not easy, and that guy should be penalized, and Wonderboy should actually be complimented, and he should be well taken care of just for doing the right thing.
I agree. KenFlo. I agree. Nailed it. I mean, I think this was very unfortunate. And also, certain fighters, they'll do it and they go, well, I got away with it. It's not a big deal. He's supposed to weigh 170 pounds. There's a 1 pound allowance in case you screw something up, right? So he comes in at 174, really. Like, it's 174. It's 4 pounds over the 170 pound weight limit. The dude is absolutely massive at welterweight. This is his 3rd time missing weight. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
100%. 100%.
Have him fight at 185 pounds. This is why I thought this was such a tough fight for Wonderboy. Is, first of all, the style. The dude knows how to move. He's clearly familiar with that in and out karate type style. And the dude is massive for the weight class. So that was a concern for me. And it was a concern clearly for someone like Wonder Boy and his team. I'm not giving anybody any edge. You know what I mean? Why are you going to give? He already comes in heavy in the fight. Like how much? Again, like I wish I had someone like let me come in at 171 against Aldo. Even that 1 pound would have made a difference. And I think that like people are always like, well, it's just a couple pounds. Why isn't he cut? I always say this. I've said this many times on the podcast. It's like running a marathon and being like, can you just run another 7 miles for me? It's just another 7 miles. You just did a marathon, not a big deal. No, it is at that stage of the game. It is every mile, every pound is a big deal. And that could be the difference between feeling okay, feeling great, or feeling terrible. So people get away with it, and you find out who the real fighters and who the real professionals are and who aren't. Yes. And I think that, like Ray said, he absolutely should have been penalized. And for Wonder Boy at this stage of the career, he shouldn't be taking that fight. You know, he should not be taking that fight at this stage. And I think he should be compensated in some way, shape, or form.
Without a doubt.
We all know, you know, if you are a promoter, you want to see someone like Wonder Boy on that card. And I think
no question
that's
about
also
it.
Their way of going, well, you're not going to fight. Guess what? We're not paying you. We're not going to pay you. Even if they're going to give you extra money or whatever, that L really matters to fighters, professionals, martial artists like Wonder Boy. And I think he made the right choice. Just unfortunate all the way around. But again, as far as Pereira is concerned, you know, and I picked him to win that fight, by the way. I thought it was going to be close, but I picked Pereira to win.
Right.
I say, make him a middleweight for his next fight.
100%. I love it. Yeah.
Yep.
And I tell you, thank God Wonder Boy doesn't need that money too. I mean, they do really well out in South Carolina. So, you know, for the guys that really would have needed the paycheck, what do you think, man? A promoter's going to piss all over that. They're going to thrive on that. Go fight. You're going to make the money. Your money. Everything's fucking money. No, it ain't fucking money. And thank God Wonder Boy's got enough of it. And his father, they do well with that school. He could tell you, go fuck yourself. I ain't fighting. I signed the fucking contract. And this guy didn't do his job. Why am I being penalized for that? In what fucking universe does that make sense?
Yeah. So I agree with everything out of both of your mouths. I have long agreed and aligned with Mike Dolce, who wants the stiffest penalties possible for missing weight, right? You start to go 40, 50% of purse, right? Then you do a ton of purse. Right, maybe only if you miss weight, you're only fighting for a no contest or whatever it is. Switch divisions with multiple offenses, right? You make the consequences so dire that it will nip the problem in the bud, especially when it comes to kicking guys out of divisions. Now, Jordan Sullivan is one of the finest nutritionists in the space. He works with Israel Adesanya and other guys. He's the _fight dietitian. He agrees with most of what you guys just said. But when he commented, when I posted Wonder Boy's statement on my Instagram page, he posted a comment I'm going to read to you guys, and it set off a little bit of a firestorm. Now, we're going to have Jordan Sullivan on the Anik Florian podcast in the next few weeks, and I probably shouldn't even read this without giving him the benefit to respond here, but I'm just saying he agrees. He agrees with a lot of what you guys are saying, and he wrote, I agree with this wholeheartedly, but there is no significant advantage that exists with such an insignificant difference of weight at this level of competition in a sport that is this technical. Kenny Florian.
Yeah.
Kenny. Be nice. Hey, hang on. Be nice because he's a real good dude and he's going to be on here, Kenny, in a few weeks.
I love it.
I'm throwing that at you, Kenny, because it sounds like you think that's total bullshit.
I'm asking a genuine question here, but has Jordan Sullivan ever competed in a professional?
He has cauliflower ear. I know that. I don't know.
Okay. All right. So I'd be curious. It absolutely makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. If that was the case, then shit, anyone could come in. Hey, let's make it a 5-pound allowance.
Let's
make it a 4-pound allowance for every fight. No, it does matter, especially when we're talking about a guy like Pereira, who, and it's a case-by-case basis too, I think. Yeah. So there's some truth to what he's saying, but look how big Pereira is in the offseason. Look at him the next night after a fight. 100% it matters. I've been in there against Jose Aldo and Diego Nunes, and I was nowhere close to 100%. Okay?
Yeah, right.
And
let me jump in. Let me jump in, Kenny.
I was just going to say this, Ray. I was hitting pads for 5 minutes, and my muscles were locking up before the Jose Aldo fight. So, absolutely, if I was allowed to weigh 148, again, that would have been a big difference. So, anyways, go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure there's no fucking studies on whatever the hell he's saying anyway. But we've seen Alex gas out before too. From making the weight. We've seen him gas out in a couple of fights. Remember that first fight he lost with that guy?
Michelle Pereira. Yeah,
exactly. Michelle. Sorry about that. But you know what I'm saying? So that statement is, I'm going to say, is asinine. And yeah, maybe some guys are so mentally strong because they've done it their whole life that maybe they get through with that. But for the guy, if that was the case, then make the fucking weight. So does it go to the same in the opposite direction? If it's not a big deal, then make the fucking weight. It's got to be Ray, some sort of a deal. The guy couldn't do it.
And Ray, we're talking about the elite level here, where we're having a bad hair day. We're having a bad hair day might matter on who wins.
How about this?
It's so close, you know. So
how about this? I give you my fucking word. I'm going to be 170. How about that? How about we just hold to our fucking word? What we're supposed to do that we shouldn't even need a fucking contract for. How about that?
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I feel like I'm in Happy Gilmore right now, and I'm the guy who gave your grandmother's house away. Hey,
hold on a second.
Give your grandma's house to someone else. It's not my. I'm not doing.
So anybody fighting Israel in the future, just come in 4 or 5 pounds over because he's going to take the fight because it don't matter. How about that?
It's a much longer conversation. But yes, I agree with you. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Hey, no, I am now. When we have Jordan on, it's going to be the 4 of us. So you're going to be a part of this conversation so he can scientifically explain himself, right? Because he doesn't come from this place of ignorance. Of that, I can assure you, right?
Right. No, it's not that, but it's, in a time like this when a guy's fucking 40 years old and the other guy's a young guy up and coming, are you fucking joking?
Well, no, right. No,
it's disgraceful.
I think Jordan Sullivan and everybody else agrees with his decision to pull out of the fight. He's just trying to talk about maybe the lack of a physical advantage, and you guys obviously disagree. We got to get out of here, Ray. You got anything else before we get you go? Who's fighting locally? We got Aljo coming up in 5 minutes, like 3 weeks.
Yeah. First off, we mentioned Derrick Lewis. I'm so happy for Derrick Lewis and his fucking balls. I really am. I'm happy for the both of them. That was a outstanding. One thing I wanted to say too, Kenny, I tell you that we didn't talk about, or you probably did. I wasn't here. But Alex Pereira was just knocked out viciously 3 or 4 months ago. So again, I was taking that into consideration. I'm blown away by that, again. Yeah. So I'm sure. So that's like, I don't look, and under any circumstance, that's not good for you, but that's like me saying it doesn't matter. Look, Alex did it. No, it doesn't matter if he got knocked out 2 weeks ago. I did it. And look, back in the day, guys would get dropped in the gym, Kenny. They would put you back in the next day just to test you, see if you're tough enough. Do you really want to do this? Which is absolutely asinine in the long run. But it was happening, and people did do it. They survived. I know guys, heavyweights that I still know to this day that they talk well, no problems, and it's happened to them a number of times. So I don't know. That was a big thing too with the Alex. Like, hats off to him and Glover Teixeira. 2 of the nicest guys in the sport. We'll recap everything next week with what I got coming up, John. We got big stuff coming up. Remember, I got Pompos Gregorio on the Contender Series in 2 weeks. Very excited for him.
I'm going to meet. Things forthcoming at Ray Longo 9358 on Instagram. Ray Longo made it every week here on the Anik Florian podcast. Love you, buddy. Thanks for bringing it. Thanks for the candle. We'll talk to you in less than 7 days, okay?
Thank you, and thanks for waiting till the end of the show to rile me the fuck up so I can get out of here. Holy shit. Nothing matters. Wait, nothing. Everything's good. No difference in there. I got to go. I can't take it no more. Take it easy, guys. Love you, Kenny. Keep up the good work.
Hey, I just love that he was framed up. The Ray Longo made it every week here on the Anik Florian podcast on the DraftKings network. You can bring Brian Petrie into the conversation anytime. I do need to do a public service announcement on the Alex Pereira pronunciation, and it'll probably dovetail nicely into our pronunciation of the week. Don't worry, we're going to talk about Gabriel Bonfim. So here's the thing. Kenny is saying Alex Pereira, right, to try to help you people understand. and I say you people with all due respect, that there's no H sound whatsoever at play here, right? You really should roll the R, and if you can't do that consistently, that's fine. Just say Alex Pereira. But it's not Pereira in any way, shape, or form. And I know sometimes there are people out there that are paid to talk that put that H out there, and that makes it very confusing. Pereira or Pereira, right? Pereira. And even you can even do a D, right? Which is closer to a rolling R than an H, but you got to get that H out of your minds, right? Alex Pereira or Pereira, but not Pereira. Please, no H.
100%, and you pronounce it beautifully during the fight. But if the R, here's the rule: if there's an R at the beginning of the word, beginning of the name, then it is an H. If it is two R's in succession, so they're both back to back, two R's together, then it becomes an H. There is only one R in Pereira, so that's why you pronounce that rolling R. So. Yeah.
It's tricky because it's a high-profile fighter, and we went through this with Israel Adesanya, right? And we call him Adesanya, right? But if I was to go up to his sister, it's Deb Adesanya. It's not Adesanya. And I'm not going to rehash all of that right now because my producer, Zach Candida, was listening, but he's Adesanya on broadcast. And maybe one time when I cap a finish of his, I'll say Adesanya. We'll see. All right, let us get to Big Gun Brian Petrie, host of the MMA Takes podcast. I usually introduce him as the fine handicapper here on the Anik Florian podcast. Sorry about the wait, my man. It's good to see your shining face.
No, Ray was on fire. The Minutemen are going to love that. You got him worked up. You got the blood pressure rising on Ray. I love it.
I get 2 tickets to every UFC fight night, and if my twin brother is to be believed, you're using my 2 tickets in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend, Brian Petrie.
Hey.
So does that mean I'm going to see
that
you?
That is
and,
right,
your
Jon
wife?
Anik. Yeah, wife's coming with me. And I mean, listen, it's my birthday on Friday. So hopefully I get to bro hug the Anik brothers. That's what I want. That's what I need in my life, and enjoy some fights. That's what I'm excited for.
All right, there's a little bit of a delay. Your mouth isn't matching up with your video, but we'll have to just fucking deal with that. But if you think that I'm just going to ignore it and let it go, you got another thing coming. Brian, I have a few things I want to ask you and Kenny about. Kenny, if I could start with you on the Derrick Lewis switch knee. You know, sometimes he'll open with something that looks similar to this to begin a fight. I didn't have that at the tip of memory when it actually happened, you know, but I do think in some way, shape, or form, this speaks to Derrick Lewis's experience, because he fought a very well-trained and motivated and focused Marcos Rogerio Peizao de Lima, and within an instant, he took any long game out of this fight with a pinpoint switch knee.
100%. You know, if you can take away someone's ability to process, right? If you could take away that time to think about stuff, then some people aren't going to make great decisions, right? Now, if there's a car that is careening towards you, you don't run in the exact direction that the car is going. You get the hell out of the way. You go left or right. You don't go straight back. And for Rogerio de Lima, he went straight back. And Derrick Lewis is basically like a car coming at you.
Yeah.
And that knee going right down the middle, and it landed beautifully. I actually thought it hit his elbow and knocked him off balance. But when I saw the replay, it hit him right on the chin. It pinned
right in the fucking mouth.
Right
man.
in the mouth. It was sick. And again, I think it's always surprising. Similar to when I watch Yair Rodriguez, I always forget how fast he is. Watching Derrick Lewis, you forget how sneaky athletic he is, right? Because you can be deceived by his physique or how funny he is, and the boy can move, okay? He can freaking move, and he went out there and he laid it on the line. He had a terrible losing streak. He needed this badly, and he goes, screw it. I'm going for that flying double knee, and boy, did he land it. Took Rogerio de Lima off his game by surprise, and so often in combat, if you take the enemy by surprise, they're going to make bad decisions, and that's what happened. Unbelievable, dude. So cool.
Right. Black Beast bets on himself. 33 seconds later, he's cashing in. What were your thoughts on all that noise?
Yeah, I thought he looked a little nervous. The pre-fight, I thought he was a little nervous. I saw him like, oh man, he's a little nervous here. And then flying knee comes out, does the thing, knocks him out. But you know what I mean? I love it. I mean, listen, it makes sense that I picked DeLima and then Derrick Lewis goes out and wins. I can't get the guy right no matter what. And I can't get him right. But he looked fantastic. I love the celebration, personality for days. I just discussed his options on my podcast yesterday. I think, there's a lot of options out there for him. I think betting on himself was the right way to do. I know he said he wanted to maybe resign with the UFC, but again, there's some other promotions that could use him. So,
and the last thing I'll throw your way, Bri, on UFC 291, Gabriel Bonfim over Trevin Giles with a guillotine at 113 of round 1. I'm sure, Kenny, you're so excited about this guy's submission game as well, and we'll get your thoughts on the backside. But gosh, this welterweight division, man, the young talent with Bonfim and Ian Gary and everybody else, it is just absurd. I mean, we could do fucking 5 minutes on Roman Kopylov at 185 pounds, but dude, Bri, I mean, Gabriel Bonfim, this dude could make you some money.
Yeah, he looked great. He did make me a little bit of money. One of the few bright spots. I'm embarrassed by my selections last week. That's why I got the backwards hat on, because I'm all fucking business this week. No messing around. My DraftKings bank account's on life support. But Bonfim was a bright spot. I love his aggressiveness. He jumped on the guillotine without hesitation. Giles, Kenny and I were texting. He said Giles made a mistake, but I love how he jumped on it because that's his move. He's like, I'm going for it. There's no second guessing. There's no, I'm going to give up position. He's like, you know what? If I give position, I'm getting back to my feet, or I can make this work for me. I love the confidence in this kid. And listen, 170 is again, it's a 155 is king. 135 is great. 170 though. I mean, imagine Gabriel Bonfim versus Renat Fakhretdinov. I mean, what are we doing here? Let's go. There's some 70s that I really want to see, and I'm thoroughly excited.
Kenny, I believe Gabriel Bonfim is going to be a UFC champion. He says it at 25 years old, and I believe it. I don't even need to see him in some elongated fight. I think that he has never gone to a decision. Perhaps I'm getting way the fuck ahead of myself, but what do you have for us on Bonfim in the little film that we have on him in the UFC thus far?
Well, I mean, he's got the youth. He's got the skills everywhere. He has the confidence. He has the precision. He's got the strength, and physicality is definitely there as well. And, it's extremely rare to finish an arm-in guillotine in the UFC. And the fact that he went for it and finished it like he did against a very experienced fighter like Giles, I think says a lot. And, he is going to be someone to watch for sure. He's in a division where it's just riddled with killers. Okay. So it's going to be difficult, but he is definitely a shining spot in that division. He is someone to watch. And if he does become a champion in that sport, I don't think many are going to be surprised. And I love what he said, for him, he's a martial artist, I think, because he talks about his evolution. He's like, every time I'm in here, I'm going to be a different dude. And I love that.
Love it. And our producer, Cody Merrow, has agreed to get the word Bonfim tattooed on his neck if Gabriel wins the world title.
Yeah, Cody. Let's go.
Cody didn't know. He didn't know until just now. And now Cody knows. So let us get to the pronunciation of the week as we spin it forward. UFC Fight Night. Sandhagen versus Font. This fighter charged with kicking off the main card in Nashville, taking on Ludovic Klein. You going to be in there for the first prelim, Bri, or what?
I'm gonna be there when the doors open. I ain't missing nothing.
All right, good. All right. Well, this fighter's fighting Ludovic Klein.
Here, boys. I apologize.
Yeah, a little bit of a delay. It's okay. So you're fighting. Well, you're not fighting. You're fighting at some point. But this guy, in the pronunciation of the week here, is fighting Ludovic Klein. He's Chilean. Actually, he's Chile's best hope for UFC Golden Glory. Bilal Muhammad's teammate, Bri. Who am I talking about?
So I love this guy's name. Best name in the UFC. And when I do his name, I do it a little sexy because it's a sexy name, right? So you got to go Ignacio Bahamondes.
I think we're actually going to say Circle gets a square for that because I couldn't tell if you got it right because of the sexiness. His nickname's La Jaula, which translates to the cage. But The one thing that we want to point out from the file you will hear is how you pronounce like syllable number 3, I believe it is. So Cody, why don't you fucking bang that file for us if you would?
Ignacio La Jaula Bahamondes. Ignacio La Jaula Bahamondes.
All right, so what the Chileans would like you to know, it's that second syllable, not ha, even though you see the H, right? So that's why, again, this is a public service here, right? This radio show, right? We're trying to inform the people who are all going to be watching Ignacio Bahamondes, KenFlo. Kenny, I don't know if you could tell us why that H is silent, but the important point on this athlete is that it is Bahamondes and not Bahamondes.
You got it. I can't really do a great job explaining it, but that's the pronunciation, man. Bahamondes. Yeah.
All right, let us update the standings. Team Petrie has the lead still by 580 American dollars. You both were over 500, both in terms of the record and the money. 4-3 for Petrie, plus $110. That included a 2-unit banger on Alex Pereira. Kenny also 4-3, plus $60 for the week. Overall, Team Petrie minus 25.95. Team Florian minus 31.75. No decimals. Here we go, folks. We begin UFC Fight Night, Sandhagen versus Font, Saturday night on ESPN. And then on the back end, we will get a prediction on Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. We'll pick a prelim today because Billy Quarantello was just on the Anik Florian podcast. We're going to pick his fight here against Damon Jackson, and then we'll get to the entire 6-fight main card. Hope you guys don't have any plans top of the hour. Billy Quarantello minus 170, Damon Jackson plus 145. So Billy Q needs a big response here, boys. Fell short in his co-main event slot against Edson Barboza. Had him on our show at International Fight Week. Here's what he had to say about the matchup with one Damon Jackson.
Yeah, August 5th, got a huge matchup against Damon Jackson. We're two guys coming off big losses to top 15 guys. So I think we're like right on the cusp of we can both, either one of us can win this fight and get another chance in the top 15. We both lost in the co-main event. So, you know, we got to kind of fight to get our spots back. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's a great matchup for me. It's an exciting fight. I'm going from fighting Edson Barboza, who's a really good striker, to fighting Damon Jackson, who just really wants to grapple, wants to submit. I think he's got 15 submissions. Yeah. I've never been submitted. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I pride myself on doing really well on the ground. So it's just been a really good training camp so far. A lot of grappling, a lot of high-level wrestling, and I'm just super excited to get back in there and kind of redeem myself a little bit.
All right, that's Billy Q. Your thoughts on him here, Brian Petrie against Damon Jackson.
Yeah, I love Billy Q. Pressure makes diamonds. This guy, that's what he is. He's in your face. He goes after you. Cardio, no problem. You know, he doesn't have the biggest power in the world, but it's a lot of accumulation punches. He'll mix up his takedowns very well. And he's tough as nails. I was actually surprised that, you know, he got clipped by Barboza so early. That's going to happen when you fight a guy like Edson Barboza. And Damon Jackson, he's a surprise to me. This is a guy who I've written off a few times, but he is a little bit of a surprise. He's dangerous out there. Problem is I do think he slows down quite a bit towards the end of the fight, and I think that's gonna be the problem here. I like Billy Q. I like Billy Q late here. Give me Billy Q. One for Longo. Kind of a Longo guy, not really, kind of, but let's go Billy Q.
Damon Jackson on the other side, KenFlo, 34 years of age, 11th UFC appearance for him, knocked out by Dan Ige last time out in January. That ended his winning streak at 4. His only losses the last 6 years have been to high-level guys, Ige, and then 2 guys who are undefeated, Ilya Topuria, and then a guy Mavlid Khaibulaev. So we'll see what DJ has here in the role of underdog against Billy Quarantello. KenFlo, which way you going?
Yeah, Damon's tough. He's tall. He's lanky. I think he's made some improvements training with safe, you know, with the striking and all that stuff. But I think he's up against a very tough Billy Q, who's going to be clearly very motivated in this one. Billy Q is going to come to fight every single time out. He's going to be looking for the finish every single time out as well. I think he has the wrestling to kind of slow down Damon Jackson, or at least prevent a lot of those takedowns. And if Damon does get the takedown, I think Billy Q is competent enough to either get back to his feet or to, create these scrambles and things like that. So I like Billy Q here as well. I just think his striking and his motor is going to be the difference here.
All right, that brings us to the main card opener in the lightweight division. The aforementioned Ignacio Bahamondes minus 205. Ludovic Klein plus 175. Ludovic's kind of fun to say, Bri. He's coming off a draw with Jai Herbert at UFC 286 in March. Bahamondes streaking. He's won his last 3 after a loss. Memorably, though, in his UFC debut against John Makdessi. Which way you going here, Brian Petrie, at $155?
Love this fight because I think Ignacio Bahamondes, again, you got to get sexy with it just a little bit there.
Drop the H, though. You still got to drop the H.
I mean, all right. That's I was going to say, if I was like, I did a 23 and it came back and it just said white, right? I'm just a white guy, right? So I can't name my unborn son Ignacio, but if I get a next, I'm done with kids. I got 2 girls. So if I get a dog, it's going to be Ignacio. I love the name so much. And I love this fight for him. I'm very confident in this fight. This is a kid who's got great takedown defense. That's been his problem before he came to the UFC. And he's dangerous on the feet. Long limbs, long kicks, good punches. He's got power. He's got a chin. He learned his lesson in the Makdessi fight. I just saw the chat he said, sorry. There it is. I watch fights with buddies and they were saying that to me on Saturday. So it's catching on, boys. Anyway, Ignacio, I think he's going to keep this fight standing. Ludovic Klein, he is a kickboxer. He likes to stand up, but his hands are his hands set up his kicks are more prevalent, and he liked to take down. I think he put on his wrestling shoe this camp. I think he wants to get Bahamondes down, which is a lot easier said than done. Bahamondes does have some chokes. He's training with some great guys. I like Bahamondes here. I like the number as well. I think this is a low enough number to really hammer. I'm not going to go 5 unis because I got another play on the card with a 5 uni slamma jamma, but give me Ignacio for this one because I think he's going to get done.
Nacho is the nickname, so that's how we'll be punctuating a call. Nacho Bahamondes, if indeed he gets it done over Ludovic Klein. Kenny, what do you have for us on this one, kid?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think for Klein, I'm always expecting to see this sharp striking, and I don't quite see that. It's not as potent as I would like to see. You don't see those sharp knockouts. I think if I saw that, I'd maybe give him a little bit of an edge, but I like Bahamondes here as well. So I think his overall game is going to be the difference.
All right, next up, light heavyweight division. Tanner the Bulldozer Boser minus 165, Alexa Kammer plus 140. Excuse me, Kammer, Bri has not fought since June 2021, lost a split to Nikolai Negumedianu. Boser's UFC light heavyweight debut, not this one. It was in April, and it didn't go particularly well. He was knocked out by Iwan Kutelaba. Now he draws Kammer, looking to avoid a 3rd straight loss and potentially keep his job. Bri, you going with Boser the favorite or Kammer the dog?
I'm an Ohio guy just like Kammer, so I think I'm allowed to bust his balls a little bit. I'm the biggest fan there is. I didn't know he's still in the UFC. It's been a while since he showed his face. And listen, he's a striker at heart. He has problems getting taken down. I think this is going to be a strike fest here. Boser got clipped early. I was all over him. He looked in great shape against Kutalaba. Got clipped. You can't get clipped by that guy. That's what's going to happen. I like Boser. I like the Kentucky waterfall haircut still. He's getting a little mean online. He's going off there, posting videos, getting kind of mean about some stuff. So maybe he'll take that anger to this fight here. I like Boser big in this fight. Probably maybe looking for a stoppage as well.
Yeah, Boser's got an edge to him. There's no doubt about it. KenFlo, Tanner, Boser, Alexa Kammer. Who do you like?
Yeah, from Boser, I want to see kind of better decisions during fights, though, because he really does have a lot of potential. I think he moves really well. And I've been kind of waiting to see him kind of climb a little bit more and put it together. And I haven't quite seen that. So picking a Tanner Boser fight correctly has also been a challenge for me, similar to DERRICK LEWIS. However, I'm just going to make another mistake here. Let's go with Tanner Boser. No, I think Boser is the better fighter at the end of the day. I think for Kammer, there's not a whole lot where I could say, he's got the edge here, or he's way better in this domain. I think it's Tanner Boser's fight to lose. So give me Tanner.
All right, next main card matchup in Nashville, live on ESPN this weekend, comes your way at featherweight. Diego Lopez, minus 130. Gavin Governor Tucker, plus 110. Kenny, we'll lead with you here. Lopez back after that unbelievably memorable UFC debut on short notice against Movsar Evloev. And that was only about 7 weeks ago, UFC 288. That was so special that he's getting the red corner against a guy who's been in the UFC for a while, Gavin Tucker, Kenny. He is sort of underachieved, I think, relative to expectations. For a time, looked like maybe he could carry the torch for Canada, perhaps can begin a run here, but he's now 37. Tucker, Lopez, under the lights, close on paper. Who do you have?
Yeah, I think that last fight for Lopez against Evloev really was a coming out party for him, even though it was a loss. And it kind of reminded me when I fought Sean Shirk, I got my ass kicked, but it showed that, hey, Kenny might be able to fight. He might find some success in the UFC. He's got some skills, and I thought he did really well. He had Evloev in some really tough spots. I think his striking is very good. I think his grappling is very good as well. Tucker is good too. He's good as a grappler. He's good as a striker overall. But we never know, how people come back after knockouts. And that was a brutal knockout against Dan Ige. And I thought Tucker was going to give him a much better go. What happens for Tucker is he goes a little bit too in a straight line when he goes to attack. And I think if you're doing that too much at the high levels of the UFC, you're going to get caught with big stuff. And I think Diego Lopez, I don't know if he has that same kind of power that Dan Ige does, but I don't think that's a recipe for success against someone like Diego Lopez, who has some really good skills in a lot of different areas. So give me Lopez here.
That loss to Dan Ige by Gavin Tucker, 22-second KO 2.5 years ago. Tucker had won 3 in a row coming in, Brian Petrie, but Diego Lopez kind of all the rage right now on the underground circles. Your thoughts on this one here, Lopez and Tucker at featherweight?
I like Lopez on the Contender Series when he lost to Johannes and Brito. I think the guy has some real skills and people love him. His record's good. He's fought good people. The Evil-Lev fight was everyone opened his eyes like, this guy took this on short notice. I mean, what the fuck? But man, Gavin Tucker, he reminds me a lot of Sean Brady. He looks like him, kind of fights like him. He can box a little bit, but he's really good at taking you down. Lopez is good off his back. He's good on top. But I think Gavin Tucker plays it safe. I see a decision win here. The only reason I'm not loading up on Gavin Tucker is because he's been away for so long. It's very inconsistent. The guy needs to fight. He's not a young dude. He's 36, 37. Time to start moving here, bud. I don't know if it's injuries or what are taking him out of the OC, but I like Gavin Tucker at the dog price. I think he's going to win by decision.
All right, next fight featured bout in a big fight at light heavyweight. 15th ranked Kennedy Nzechukwu, -150. Number 14, Dustin Jacoby, is +130. The Nigerian Nzechukwu really coming into his own, 6-3 in the UFC, but he's won 3 in a row. Hardest worker in the room. On the other side, Jacoby, great dude, great kickboxer, the fucking Hanyak. Mark Montoya trained, 12th UFC appearance for him, coming off a loss against Azamat Murzakanov, April 15th. BP, who do you have?
Toughest fight to pick on the card for me. I've been going back all morning on this fight because I don't know what's going to happen. What I do know, and this isn't the purpose for us, this is for our wonderful listeners, over 2.5 on DraftKings Sportsbooks, -130. You sledgehammer that because I think these boys are going to a decision here. I think it's going to be a kickboxing fight. I think it's going to stay on the feet. I think Kennedy's going to use his range. I think Dustin Jacoby sometimes needs to pick it up a little more, but he's very good on the feet, very good kicks. Kennedy's, I think, got the power edge. He's also mixing in some takedowns in the cardio advantage. I really don't know which way he's going to go. When that happens, I go dog. So give me Dustin Jacoby. I wish he would change his name to Justin Jacoby so we can go JJ, but I guess GJ is pretty cool too. Give me Dustin by decision. I'm not confident, but that's what we play, baby. Here we go. Gamble. Let's gamble, baby.
Kenny, seems like you maybe had a hard time predicting this one as well. You have anything for us on Nzechukwu and Jacoby?
I did, man. Here's my reason why I'm going Dustin Jacoby, okay? I think that Nzechukwu might be the more dangerous guy in some ways as far as maybe finishing ability, but I also think he's more vulnerable than Dustin Jacoby. I don't think Jacoby makes as many in-fight mistakes as much as Nzechukwu. So for that reason, I'm going with Jacoby and the fact that he's the underdog here. It is really close. I'm going to lean towards the underdog many times when that's the case. So give me Jacoby.
All right, that brings us to the co-main event at strawweight. Tatiana Suarez, -390 against Jessica Andrade. She comes back +320. So Bryce Suarez ended her 3-year hiatus quite well. Submission win over Montana De La Rosa. That was at flyweight. Now she's back to 115 pounds, faces the former champ Andrade. Suarez, accomplished freestyle wrestler, 32 years of age now. And on the other side, Andrade has lost 2 in a row. This is her 4th start of the year. And we're not even at August, but we will be on Saturday night. Co-main event, Brian Petrie, who do you have?
Yeah, so I did do this little bit on my show because earlier in the year I was terrible at picking women's MMA. So I go, I know chicks. I said I know chicks, right? And it's been picking steam. People like it, and I've been winning fights. So this is the BP knows chicks fight right here. I love this fight. I love Jessica Andrade. She's a legend. She's younger than Tatiana Suarez, which is mind-blowing. Suarez, who I'm huge on. I think Cody probably has his shirt off right now as we're talking about Tatiana Suarez because I know he loves her as well. I think she would be champion if she'd have a neck injury. If she didn't have the neck injury and got sidelined, she would be champion in my opinion. She's got the wrestling, she's got the length, she's got the good people around them. Her boyfriend's Patchy Mix. He's teaching her all those sick ass chokes. I love Tatiana Suarez. I think this is going to be an awesome fight. Problem is Jessica Andrade, you got someone who's been out for a little bit who's starting to kind of pick up steam in Suarez, and you got Andrade who might be just running ragged. She is just so many fights, so back-to-back and 2 back-to-back losses. Before that, she threw like 200 something strikes or maybe more, landed 200 strikes against Lauren Murphy. I wish someone was in her camp that just said, hey, listen, you're a legend. We don't need you to fight every month. Let's hit pause. Let's hit pause on that a little bit. But, that's her. She's a savage. She's going to go out there. She's going to fight. I think this is stylistically a bad matchup for her. I think Andrade has good takedown defense, but when she gets taken down on her back, it's a problem. Suarez is going to take her down. That's why we're unloading the truck. We're pulling the bags out. 5 uni play on Tatiana Suarez. I know chicks, babe. Let's go.
Historically, MMA on the women's side can be hard for a lot of people to handicap. I'm just doing the math. That is $1,950 on Tatiana Suarez to yield 500. KenFlo, Jessica Andrade returning pretty quickly here after the knockout loss to Yan Xiaonan. That was at UFC 288. What kind of chance you give her against Suarez? And ultimately, who do you pick?
Great matchup for Suarez. Terrible matchup for Andrade. I think that Andrade, does she have power? Does she have knockout power? Absolutely. She can maybe clip the chin of Suarez and take her out, but she does her best work when she gets the takedowns and she beats you up with her ground and pound. I don't see that happening here against Suarez, who is an absolute savage when it comes to takedowns, perhaps the best female takedown artist in the game today. So, yeah, I like Suarez. I also had +5 units on my phone here. And I'm not going to let this guy get ahead of me because I got to match those 5 units because this guy will just start running away from me. So I got 5 units on Suarez as well. I just think it's a great matchup for her. I see her taking her down, and that's where Andrade is going to be very vulnerable.
All right, right back to KenFlo now on the main event in the UFC's bantamweight division. Number 4, Corey Sandhagen, -285. 7th ranked Rob Font is +240, Kenny. So Font stepping in here for Umar Nurmagomedov. Perhaps the step up, step in plays into the price a little bit and the wide nature of it. Perhaps it's just that Sandhagen is that good. But Font was preparing for Song Yadong in Boston 2 weeks later, August 19th. And having nothing to do with the rankings, this is obviously a much bigger opportunity and name and fight for Rob Font, even if it doesn't come in his hometown. Sandhagen is a guy, Kenny, I know you admire a ton as well. So it's a huge fight at 135 pounds, boys. KenFlo, on which side do you fall?
This is one of those fights similar to Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, where you can't hate either of these guys. Both of these guys are super likable. I admire both of them and their skills. I think maybe the difference, I think, with these guys, I think Rob Font is a little bit more potent with his striking in that he's got a little bit more power in his hands. Sandhagen, the thing that stands out for me when he fights and his approach and when he talks is his intelligence. So, Sandhagen also very tall, lanky for the division, has so many movements, so many weapons that can fry the computer of any fighter out there at 135 pounds. And I think for Rob, it's very difficult for him to take this fight on short notice, completely different fight, 5 rounds. I think that's a lot to ask at this level of fighting. And that's why I have Sandhagen here. I think if Sandhagen is able to finish someone like Rob Font, that would be a huge feather in his cap. It would be extremely impressive. I think most likely it probably goes to decision. Rob Font is so tough. He's so technical. He's extremely dangerous. So Sandhagen better be on top of his game here. But I like Corey here. I just think his length, the time frame in which this fight was put together gives him a big advantage here. So I can't wait for this fight. This is high level MMA right here. So can't wait for it.
Brian Petrie, Sandhagen Font, main event, Nashville, Tennessee. You'll be in the building with me live for it. Who do you have?
I can't wait for this fight. I mean, I'm bummed Umar's not here because I wanted to see Umar get that test. I also want to see Corey get the test of a grappler because that's the big thing is like, can he, because we all saw what Aljo did to him. But I love this fight. This is striking. About it. I think Font has the better boxing. Like Kenny said, a little bit more power, but Sandhagen mixes everything so well and he's so smart and everything's a read and everything's a setup. And like Kenny said, he's frying the other chip on the computer and he's really intelligent. He's a joy to watch. And I love that he's mixing things up. You look at the Song Yudong fight, he was going for takedowns. Physically, the way his body looks, he's really matured. I think he went out to Thailand for some of this fight as well. He's getting his skills sharp here. I can't wait. This is going to be a chess match. I think this is an unbelievable fight. I like Corey here, but Rob Font's a great dog number. You open Rob Font's chest up, there's 4 dogs sitting right there. The guy's got top 5 toughest guys in UFC. Chin for days, heart for days, won't give up on himself. Look what he did with Yanez, this up-and-coming stud, goes out there and goes, hey, levels, bro, right? And he just seems like a good dude, Font, that is. So I like Corey here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Font comes out here and shows up and really delivers a fight for the fans, and I can't wait. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. But, yeah, the pick is Sandhagen, just a little more polished everywhere, I think.
All right, Brian, any prelim selections before I get to Jake Paul and Nate Diaz?
I do not, because we were going to do the Paul Diaz fight, so I don't have any prelims.
All right, let me get to it. Jake Paul minus 370 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. The comeback on Nate Diaz plus 265. So Jake Paul made his pro boxing debut January of 2020. He is now 6-1 coming off that split decision loss to Tommy Fury. Diaz, less than a year ago, was competing in his 34th pro MMA fight, submission win over Tony Ferguson. He was bonus for that, by the way, UFC 270 night. And this was a night on which he was to face Khamzat Chimaev. And I bring Khamzat up because Nate was plus 700 against Khamzat Chimaev. He's only plus 265 here against Jake Paul. Any value on Diaz for you, Brian Petrie? And ultimately, who do you like?
I mean, of course, listen, I'm not one of those guys that's like very anti Jake Paul. Like, listen, what I think the kid's doing is unique, right? This is a millionaire kid that could be banging any broad in the world, sitting there putting up those Disney YouTube bullshits, right? And make $20 million. He decides to fight, right? I like that. I respect that. He seems to be in great shape. He's a big kid as well. He's not small. Yeah. Nate Diaz is tall, but Nate Diaz isn't the thickest guy. Nate Diaz has been boxing forever. He's brought in some good boxing guys in his camp. There's a lot of Reddit rumors going around about, who he sparred and how it did or whatever. It doesn't matter. And Nate, I don't know if you guys have caught Nate promoting this fight, but it's very odd, like the way he's doing it. He's saying he's fighting Jake Paul because he made fun of Conor's wife and he's honoring Conor, and he's like, if you don't want to watch, don't watch. He's like co-promoting. It's very odd, but very on brand to Diaz. Saying all that, I'm going Nate Diaz plus money. I think the 10 rounds is going to be good for Nate Diaz. I think early, it's going to be like a Leon Edwards fight. He's going to get knocked around the early rounds, and then that cardio never fails. He's going to touch the body. He's going to come forward. And when you're giving big plus money, I mean, I'm going to take it, and some people are putting this MMA versus boxing, which I mean, I don't believe that's true, but if we're going to do that, I'm MMA all day. So give me Nate Diaz, babe.
Plus 265, Kenny, for Nate Diaz, or Jake Paul minus 370. Of course, you can abstain as well. Any action for you on this one?
No action for me on this one, but I do think that for Jake Paul, he's got a good shot early in this fight. That's his best chance, I think. Catch Nate Diaz early. Nate Diaz tends to require a warm-up. Once he gets heated up and he sees you're tired, he brings it and then he takes you out, or at the very least overwhelms you. And I think that's the case here. If this is a 6-rounder, like I think Jake Paul has fought before, I think Jake has a better chance. 10-rounder, I think that definitely favors Nate Diaz 100%. And I think an MMA camp tends to have that wear and tear over Nate Diaz over the course of his career. I think, I think that's the kind of stuff that's going to, beat down your body a lot more. And I've said this before, I think boxing is one of the best parts of Nate Diaz's game. Just throwing hands, just having to worry about hands. I think Nate's used to that. So I think Nate definitely is the pick here, especially with those kind of odds, being the underdog. I like Nate Diaz here as well.
Nice. All right, we'll see. A lot of the pro fighters I'm hearing from.
Did we pick every fight the same, Brian?
I got it written down here, and
Tucker and Lopez.
Tucker and Lopez difference. Yep.
All right, more from Brian Petrie on his own show, MMA Takes Podcast, at Brian Petrie MMA on X. Have a great night, better week, and we will talk to you next week, my brother.
All right, I'll see you this weekend, Johnny. See you, boys.
See ya.
Text me later, kid. Brian Petrie going to be with us in the building in Nashville, Tennessee. If you want to get a picture, and believe us, he's 6'3" tall. You can see Kenny Florian in San Antonio at PFL 7 this Friday night. If you would like, Bubba Jenkins and Josh Silvera will also be there. Sunday, August 6th, KenFlo will be back in Brookline, Massachusetts at the Florian Martial Arts Center right there on Webster Street if you want to see him in the flesh. AnikFlorianPodcast.com is live, KennyFlorianMartialArts.com. And we're back with you in a few days. It might be me and Longo early next week. And then, of course, we will have predictions for Vicente Luque and Rafael Dos Anjos from KenFlo and Brian Petrie later in the week. Thank you to our guests, Petrie and Ray Longo, our executive producer, Cody Merrow, putting up with all of us over the last several hours. We appreciate that as well. Everybody at DraftKings, thank you too. And thanks to all the UFC fans in Salt Lake City for just making me feel like $1 million. I take that right to the heart, and I take all that confidence into the booth in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend. With that, KenFlo, have a great call. We will see you next week. For Kenny Florian, I'm Jon Anik. Thank you all for listening, for watching. We'll talk to you in less than a week. Until then, yo fucking later.